format.
This is the new format. So this is what we're going to be doing as far as, like, I think to make our live streams just easier, and I don't have to edit them down to go to YouTube when we're starting on YouTube. So I think that's the way. I think that's the way to go. Um, and I think it connects with a wider audience, if you ask me. I mean, a lot of people don't go to Instagram for live streams, where a lot of people do go to YouTube for the live streams.
So this is the first black and tan 0.0075% faster YouTube live. That's exciting.
YouTube live, yeah. And that I mean, that's saying a lot. I mean, we're going places. I don't know where those places are, but we're going somewhere.
Somewhere.
We're definitely going somewhere. Well, hey, look, I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you're having a good time with it.
I'm having a great time.
You know, I mean, I really do have a lot. I have a lot of fun doing this. So, I'm gonna go to YouTube now. So if you have your computer in front of you, Paul, the way that this is working. Oh, see? Oh, I didn't know live chat. I didn't know the messages came across. That's dangerous for me.
Now you need to focus.
That is so dangerous for me.
You need your medicine.
I do. I do.
Wait, can I go on my YouTube and see this? Or
you
no?
can. You can. You can go on there right now, and you'll see a big picture of me with my mouth open, going.
All right, let me see. So if I'm going to go to my subscriptions, right?
Right.
I'm going to go to black and tan. And should it say live somewhere?
It should say live. If you just went through,
I got a live thing.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's got your mouth on it. How?
Yeah. Right. So we probably want to change that. Went through.
Got it. I'm gonna pause it just so, but it works. All right.
So
both of our mouths are open at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. The cool thing is when you go on your computer. See, hey, got everybody. So we're learning this as we go, right? So bear with us. We're bike guys. We're not. I say it all the time. We're not like computer guys or video guys or anything like that. We're just bike guys. Well, Paul's a lot more than a bike guy. I'm sorry. I'm just a bike guy. That's Dr. Paul Lavelli. If you guys don't know him, he is our local fast guy. My life coach, and yeah, a little bit of everything. He's a lot more than just a bike guy.
All my monikers.
yeah, whatever. Are you drinking anything, Paul?
I'm drinking a glass of red wine, which I often do.
Red wine.
I have August 9th is my last day. So I don't know if you know this, but from usually the first day in August until the end of cross season, I don't drink unless I win a race. Then I'm allowed to have a glass of red wine. So I will not drink from August because I'm down in Miami with my family. They're here till the 9th, so I can't not party with them. So I will be having a glass of wine until August 9th, and I will not drink again until probably December 9th unless I win it.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
How about you? You having a water? Oh.
Yeah. Got that caffeine in it, though. You know what I mean? Got to be caffeinated.
You need that at 8 o'clock at night.
8 o'clock at night. A 50-year-old guy at 8 o'clock at night with his caffeine. Yeah, you want to talk about restless nights. There you go.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So, yeah, so again, you have the computer set up so you can read I'll let you read all the comments and anything else going on like that. So I'm kind of curious on how this all works out.
Well, we saw one comment. Amber put in a comment. We saw that. Yeah. So it works. I don't know if everybody's jumped on live yet. It looks like there's just 3 of us, so probably just you, me, and Amber right now. But wow. I think eventually people will get the notion of, hey, don't go to Instagram, go to YouTube Live, because I still like the nice questions and comments that we can see in there. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, so all right. So let's talk about what you do to get. I mean, so you're transitioning from you're going to be going from Crit Racer Paul, Road Racer Paul, to Cyclocross Racer Paul. What do you normally do to transition from one to the other? Where does it start?
Well, the first thing I do is get my bikes to you, and let me tell you why I do that. And you can add to this, of course. Those bikes have sat typically since December, right after nationals. They got a good cleaning. They did see you after the season. We took care of it, but I really haven't ridden those cross bikes in 7 months. So I get them to you. You take a look at the bottom brackets. You take a look at the brake pads, and we'll talk a lot more about bike maintenance during cross season because it's important that you stay on top of that, especially after muddy races. You and I both know that I can wipe out a pair of brake pads in one race if it's muddy and sandy, right? So there's no doubt about that. But that's typically the first thing I do is get you my bikes, and I say, Donald, let's go over them and let's take a look at any needs that we might have because we also know from experience that right around October 15th, it's very difficult to get parts for your cross bike.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
and there's a
That's true. A lot of people don't think of it like that. A lot of people don't think that it's like, oh crap, cross season started, but it started for everyone. It's not just you. It started for everyone. Not to mention that you want to get your bike into the bicycle shop earlier, also because for the same reason, everybody's going to start trying to get their stuff in. The parts get rare, scarce. Um, then everybody tries to dump their bikes in and saying, "Oh shit, my first race is coming up. Let me get this stuff done right now." But yeah, you definitely want to get your bike into your local bicycle shop for sure.
And then you also want to check out whatever your wheel setup is. Some guys are running tubeless, right? So you're going to want to take out the congealed sealant from those tires,
Yeah,
take them off, and redo
for
them.
sure. So I mean, basically, you just go over your entire bike, all your bikes. So you're gonna have if you're serious about cross, you're gonna have more than one. You're gonna make sure that nothing has changed. You didn't forget. Oh, I forgot I swapped out this cassette for that this last year because a lot of things happen to bikes that just sit around. They end up getting parts swapped out, moved here, moved there. So you want to make sure that your wheels all still fit in the bike and all your gears are still lined up. Everything's dialed in. What a lot of people don't know about cross bikes is they have pits and they have wheels that are in the pits. Sometimes you get a whole new fresh bike. Sometimes you're just changing out wheels. And not every, although you would think every manufacturer has their disc brakes exactly the same, their cassettes are exactly the same. That doesn't work. So you got to take it to your local bike mechanic and have him shim your disc brakes to make sure they're all identical. So if you popped in any wheel in that frame, that all your wheels are gonna all your disc brakes are gonna run exactly the same, no rubbing at all. We spend a lot of money to save watts, and you're gonna lose a lot of those watts if your brake pads are if your rotors are rubbing. So you want to also do the same with your cassettes. You want to make sure your cassettes and your rotors are all running exactly the same from wheel to wheel to wheel. Don't even think that if you had identical wheels, the same manufacturer, everything that they're all going to slide in perfect. They don't. Sometimes they're off by, I mean, a few hundreds, but that's all it takes sometimes for you to get rotor rub and things like that. So you want to be careful on how you want to make sure that your stuff is set up properly.
And chances are, to add to that, Donald, in a cross race, likely you're probably going to go down maybe once or twice. It's going to happen. Like eventually, you're going to go down. You're going to hit disc brake. You're going to tweak it a little bit, and then you're going to have brake rub. That needs to be worked out, usually after a race. But certainly, pay attention even throughout the season on brake rub, brake pads. Just the whole functioning of the bike. There's
I
no, there's no doubt that I have bought you bikes from really muddy weekends, and we had to really strip it down and redo
Oh,
it.
for sure, for sure. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything. See, this is so distracting. I'm not used to this. everything's popping up. The questions are right in front of me, and I'm the worst when it comes to that. I stop and I read them. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll get over it. I promise. But anyway, we're talking muddy bikes. So one of the issues with cross is you run in any condition. It's going to be cold, icy, wet, muddy, rain, dry. It doesn't matter. I mean, they run their bikes no matter what. So, what you want to make sure you do is you need to have a really good mechanic and take it to one guy. Find that mechanic that you trust. You take your bike to him or her, and you make sure that they dial it in the way that you like it. Get a relationship with your have a relationship with your mechanic to where they know exactly how you like your handlebars. They know exactly how you like your brakes. They know everything about the way that you like your bike set up. So when they can repeat it right after the other. So all three of your bikes are going to have to be set up the same way, and it's important to know your racer. If you're a mechanic, it's important to know that racer. And if you're a racer, find that mechanic that's going to put in the time to get to know you and your bikes, because it'll pay off at the end.
100%. 100%. Why don't we step back and think about, hey, I've never cross raced. What do I need to do? Like, I don't have three bikes. I don't even have a bike yet, right? So I think as a beginning cross racer, it's important to realize you actually don't need a cross bike to race your first cross race, right? So when you're Cat 5 and starting out, you can use a mountain bike, you can use your road bike with a slightly different tire set on. There's a lot of different things that you can do to get involved. And one of the really nice things that's very different than the crit scene is the cross scene tends to be a really welcoming family. Like, it's a very fun venue. People
Yeah,
get the
it's
whole
definitely more about having fun on the lower levels. Don't get it mistaken for a second. At the higher levels, they're just as serious as any other high level racing, right? They take it super serious. The game faces come on. They're not playing games, they're out to race. But at the lower levels, I honestly believe that it's between mountain biking, and I'm sorry to throw the road guys under the bus like this, but they take things way too serious with road at Cat 5 level, where with mountain biking at the Cat 5 level they have heckle pits. A heckle pit, and same thing with cross, they have heckle pits also. A heckle pit is that area where everybody gathers to just tease you and have fun, make you laugh, and hand you a beer while you're going by, hand you a shot of something while you're going by.
hand you
um,
hand you a donut, hand you $1. All these things are good.
whatever they hand you, it is what it is. It's super cool. You get these things in mountain bike racing. You get these things in cross racing. Obviously, you don't get it in road racing. They're going past a little too fast to be handing out shots of beer and donuts, but it's a different scene. It is. I think it's a much more welcoming scene, like Paul said. It's a much more inviting scene. If you want to have a good time, whether you go to watch or whether you go to race, it's a good time for sure.
And for the beginning cross racer, that fear of racing in a group, it's alleviated. You're not really racing in a group. You're racing, for the first start, and we can talk about starts in a little bit. Yeah, you're in a group, but it doesn't last very long. And generally, you get to ride with one or two other people, and you're not worried about going around a corner and wiping somebody out or you being wiped out. It's much easier to race that format, I think, than a crit, which can be terrifying to a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So you go there, you sign up for your first cross race, you take whatever bike you can manage to put together. You got some tires on that have some knobbies on, and hopefully it's a dry race. And we would call that a dirt crit. And
You don't want to get started. Don't get started in the mud. Like don't start your cyclocross career off in the mud or in the snow or sleeting rain or something like that. Don't do it. Skip that race. Come back when it's a dirt crit or a dirt course, because you'll have a lot more fun.
yeah,
They get challenging as they go.
yeah, yeah. And then it's important also to realize that if you really want to be competitive in cross and you haven't started cross yet, when you are at the Cat 5, Cat 4 level, you have to register early. And like that's the one thing that's sort of a disadvantage, I think, is that you can't necessarily choose the weather of your race when you're registering an hour, a month ahead of time. The reason you register early is because when you're a Cat 5, your call up position, which is where you're going to start, is not like a it's not like a crit where everybody can line up at the same time and it doesn't make a difference. In cyclocross, your start position makes a huge difference. And so your call up position, whether you're one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, or in second row, eight through whatever, is based on when you're a Cat 5 when you register. So the first person who registers gets the first call up. Now, after you do your 10 races and you start getting some ranking points, then you're called up based on where your national ranking is and changes. You don't have to register. Like I typically won't even register um, with without looking at the field. So I'm registering maybe 1 or 2 days in advance. But certainly when I started out, I was getting my registration there pretty early. I just saw a question come in, Donald, which is a good question for now. Like, what is the difference, in your opinion, between a cross bike and a gravel bike? And can you use them interchangeably? I guess is something I would add to that question.
Well, like you said, at the beginner level, yeah, you can. Or if it's not a UCI race, you can, right? Like, I mean, they don't really care to certain aspect. Um, but the
And
major
let me
difference,
add real quick. That care is about tire size, tire width. 33
right,
millimeters is the limit at a UCI race that you're allowed to have. Go
right,
ahead.
right. So tire limits and drop bars. So you can't have flat bars. You can't run a mountain bike with flat bars at a higher level. You can't say have a wider tire. So the difference between a gravel bike and a true cyclocross bike is a lot of cyclocross bikes have slightly different geometry, slightly higher bottom brackets. The tire clearance is actually smaller on a gravel on a cyclocross bike because there's a tire limit size. So there's no need to make the frames wide enough to fit a 42 or a 48C tire because they're not. That's not the you can't run that tire width anyway. So higher bottom brackets, frame widths aren't quite as user friendly when it comes to wider tires, and some smaller things, but that's pretty much it.
Can you explain the difference in geometry and why, Donald?
Yeah. So a lot of gravel bikes are slack and longer. It's for stability, right? But when you make
For the beginner, what is I know you and I know what slack mean. What does slack mean for
so the handlebars or the fork, slack is this, right? So the fork is raked out. That's slack. Steep is when the fork is straight up and down. When a bike gets a steep fork, it handles in a corner really fast, but it's also twitchy. So you got to be careful. They make gravel bikes and touring bikes because basically a gravel bike is an off-road touring bike. Um, Gravel bikes and touring bikes, they make them really slack and long for stability. They're not really good. They're not meant to be really good handling bikes initially. Um, and then what you started in the gravel bikes scene goes in two directions now. At first, there were just gravel bikes, which were basically someone's old cross bike that they started riding on gravel with, or some type of um, some type of road bike that could take a big enough tire to put on a gravel tire on it. So now it's gone in two directions. You have your your gravel bikes that I would call um, your adventure bikes, right? They have water bottle bolts on them everywhere. You can put up hook panniers up, racks up, everything on them. They're not necessarily built for lightweight, and now they go. in another direction. The other direction is more on racing side. So the racing gravel bikes are getting even closer to a cross bike. So cross bikes don't have pannier rack mounts, pannier mounts, things like that. They're making these bikes as light as they possibly can. Same thing with your racing gravel bike. The racing gravel bike now doesn't have all your pannier mounts and water bottle mounts and things like that. It's not meant to go on a 3 day excursion. It's meant to go point A to point B as fast as it can. They're making those super light now. Perfect example of a bike like that would be the Specialized Crux, which used to be their cyclocross bike. They've changed it now, and they call it their gravel bike that works fine for cyclocross. It was a dedicated gravel bike 2 years, 3 years ago. Now it's literally a gravel bike that works really well if you want to use it for cross. So they've gone in different directions. But a true cyclocross bike is going to be a little steeper. It's going to have a higher bottom bracket. So when you're going through corners, it's not going to get what you call pedal strikes on roots and rocks and things like that, because there's a lot of off camber races where they're racing in on the side of hillsides, and they're going alongside of the hillside, and they want to give you a little more uh, clearance when it comes to your pedals, so you can pedal through a lot of things. You'll see people in cyclocross running shorter cranks just so they can have a little more clearance for pedal strikes. If you're a really technical rider, that's probably something you want to do. A lot of people get off their bikes with in cyclocross and run. When it gets to that point, they're not even pedaling anyway. They're going to hop off their bike. They're just going to run. You almost have to be a runner to be a really good cyclocross athlete. So, yeah.
I think you hit on a really, and this is going back to your original question, like what do I do to get ready for cyclocross? There's three things I think that make a really good cross racer. He or she can maintain momentum. He or she can make good line choices, and he or she can repeat 75% of maximum intensity lots of times, right? That's what it really
Times.
lots of times.
There's unlike a lot of races, there most cyclocross races are timed. So you'll have a certain amount of time that you'll be racing, and throughout that time, uh, add add a lap. So what's the time, Paul? Is it 45?
Yeah, most people are racing somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes. The pros are racing for an hour, but that's it. Really, that's your longest cyclocross race, and that time is determined after your field takes a couple laps. So eventually, the course officials will put up 4 to go, 3 to go, like they do in a crit race, but a little more calculated based on they want the first finisher to finish just under the maximal allowable time for the event, which is typically somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes.
So racing both crits and racing cyclocross, to you, what's harder?
Cyclocross is a much harder, physically, it's more physically demanding. It's actually more technically demanding. Because remember, you're not getting a ride on anybody's wheel in a cyclocross race. Very briefly, you
Not for long. Not
have
for long anyway. You're
uh,
not doing it. You're not doing a whole lap on someone's wheel.
now. And I think you and I have talked a lot about this, and the technical skills of a cyclocross rider and a mountain bike rider, but even more in cyclocross, have to be pretty strong because if you can be a quarter second faster in a turn than another racer, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but the amount of 180, 90-degree turns in a cyclocross race, you're probably talking in each lap 30 to 40 turns. If you can be a quarter second faster in one lap, you're 4 or 5 seconds faster. Now, do an 8 lap race, now you're 32 seconds faster
That's
just
right.
technical ability, not your fitness, not anything else, but your line choice and technical ability are really key.
That's right. That's that. I think that's I've even in my racing days, if it wasn't for me having slightly better technical skills than the people around me, I would have never have finished anywhere close to what I used to finish. Um, Technical skills in mountain biking can go a long ways. Technical skills in cyclocross goes it's huge. It's huge. I mean, you can lose 3 seconds on every obstacle,
At least.
or
Yeah.
you can gain 3 seconds on every obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? You can lose up to a second or so on every corner, or you can gain. So you may not be in the best shape. You may not be the fastest person out there. And when I say fastest, I mean just like pedal strength, right? You may not have the best FTP out there. But that doesn't mean that you can't really hold on. You still can't hold on because it goes a long way.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you and I both know very good road and crit racers, nationally ranked road and crit racers who don't even finish the last lap because they're ejected from the race in a cyclocross race.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For
Strong as
sure.
strong as they are.
Yeah. Or you look at someone like and I am going to mention his name because he's a badass, Andrew. Andrew's technical skills, he went so far on his technical skills. The guy is sick on a bike, right? He went so far with his technical skills to the point where, you know, he's definitely not the strongest guy out there, you know, but he rides a bike better than 90% of the people in his race.
He can ride shit that the rest of the pros in the field cannot actually.
They
No.
can't.
Yeah.
No, for sure they can't. And I've seen them get off, and I've seen him ride through things and just like, oh, that's another. I mean, and he makes up 5-6 seconds in certain things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So whether that could be a 5-6 second rest, or he can push it even harder. Most people aren't going to rest, but if you're not as strong as the other guys and you need that rest, that counts.
So for me to work on that sort of thing when I'm transitioning, and typically I'll do road and crit up to about the end of June, and then I'll kind of back off in July, take a week of what I would call it your fitness decay, so that you can build again. But I'll spend 2 to 3 days a week on my cross bike practicing those skills, and that means for me, quite frankly, going to Patterson Park and riding around a softball field and up and down around evergreen trees, mimicking a course that lasts about 3 minutes and 40 seconds. At least it did last year. I hope I can make it 3 minutes and 35 seconds this year. But doing that in terms of my VO2 max intervals on my cross bike, working on those skills, turns, line choice, wet, dry, uphill,
It's
in saddle, out of saddle, all those things.
it's important that you work on those skills on the cross bike as well. You shouldn't. It'll. I mean, any kind of technical skill workout will help you, but it's not going to help you nearly as much as if you were on the bike that you're racing. And you want all your bikes to be set up almost identical, even if they're not the same brands. You want them set up the same way. You want the same width bars. You want the same style brakes if you can. You want everything set up the same because you're going to be transitioning from one bike to the next, sometimes in the middle of races. Sometimes every lap you'll change a bike. If you have a good mechanic and someone's in your pit to give you a good fresh bike, you'll be changing that bike every single lap. So just in case people don't still,
Sometimes every half lap because the pit has two sides. You might
yeah,
actually like twice a lap. It's not. It's
that's
not.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, this is for the people that don't quite understand what cyclocross is. Imagine a steeple race on bicycles. I mean, that's the closest that I could pick. Just like you would see in track and field, the steeplechase. It's basically that on a bike. So every true cyclocross race is going to have a sand pit. Okay, so that's going to be a section of the course that basically is just like beach sand. It's super hard to ride through. Every cyclocross race is going to have a run up. They're going to put you in a situation to where you can't ride that bike. They're going to force you off the bike and they're going to try to make you run that part of the course. Every cyclocross race are going to have barriers that you're going to have to jump. The barriers are normally consistently high. What do you know? Do you know what the height is, Paul?
18 inches.
So they're normally right around that, give or take maybe a little. Um, and then how far those barriers are separated is up to the organizer of the race. Sometimes you'll have one barrier in the middle of a field, just random, and sometimes you'll have two barriers, normally about, I'd say about 15 feet apart.
Yeah, probably two bike lengths is a good way to imagine that distance. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's a little bit less. But yeah,
Oh,
depending on the cruelty of the course designer, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
uh,
very few people are actually jumping them. Most people are picking up their bike and running over them and then hopping back on their bike.
at, at a certain level, but at the higher levels, what I'm
Yeah,
starting to see now is almost everyone's jumping them at the higher levels.
right.
There's very few people that are running now with their bikes. Most of the people that are on the first handful of people are hopping. For me, I can hop the barriers, and I played a game. Just I play around just to see if which one's faster for me. And running the barrier, believe it or not, is faster for me.
For me too.
I think hopping the barrier, I save a little bit of energy because I'm not dismounting the bike really efficiently and getting back on the way that some of the higher level guys are. And so I waste a little bit of energy doing that, but my time is still faster because when I approach, I'm coming into the barrier that that's two barriers that are two bike lengths apart. I'm coming into the barrier. I'm slamming on my brakes to slow down so I can hop it. It's not because I can't hop that first one at speed. It's because the second one comes so fast if you're going over it fast that you don't have enough time to hop the second barrier. I don't have enough time. And I see the pros, I see some of the pros, they nail it. It doesn't matter. They come in hot, they hop them both super fast. I don't understand how they're doing it, but that's why they're pros. Um, so running for me is definitely faster. Although I can hop the barriers, running for me is faster than hopping.
It's almost 2 seconds faster for me running typically than hopping the barriers. Almost 2 seconds, depending on the course. But that's a lot of time over 8 laps. That's 16 seconds of time. So,
Yeah. And not that you're counting time like that or anything like that.
well, you know me, I'm totally counting time because it's what it's all about.
You count everything.
Yeah,
That the title of our show is 0.0075% faster. He counts it down to that fraction of a second.
yeah, yeah.
So all right, so you change you're now going more interval training
Yeah.
versus
So the famous interval for cyclocross really is, people say it at different ways, Tabatas or Tabata, right? And that is, and my favorite workout, not a fun one, but my favorite workout is I do 20 seconds on and 20 seconds off for 5 minutes, 5 minutes easy pedaling. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 5 minutes, 5 minute easily pedaling. 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off, 5 minutes easy pedaling. 30, 20, wind down. It's about an hour and a half workout. It's very intense, but you're practicing because that's what cross is. You stop pedaling, you make a turn, you're out of the saddle going hard. You stop pedaling, you make another turn, like just seconds later. So you're trying to mimic that effort, which Tabatas is what I call them, is a really good way to do that. I typically do that 2 to 3 times a week. If I'm racing, those count as one of my high interval days, right? But other than that, I'm doing a lot of higher intensity. Remember, I'm only preparing to race for 40 to 45 minutes. It's not a long time. It's not a long.
so what if so again, I always say you never see Usain Bolt training like running miles. He's just not going to run miles. He's because he doesn't race miles, right? So since your races are shorter and you're only going to be on the bike for 45 to an hour, Are you ever going out and training? What are you training up to, about an hour and a half?
My zone two rides will be an hour and a half during the season. I'll still do 1 day a week of that sort of 3 hour zone two ish, keep it low, but you're still trying to maintain your aerobic base because that's where your repeatability of intervals comes from, right? You don't want to lose that over the season. But cross season is also one of those times where, I mean, to be honest, there's one season where I raced 19 races in 3 months because there's a race on Saturday and there's usually a race on Sunday.
Yeah,
Some people are doing 2 races a day. They'll use single speed and they'll do their age group or whatever,
right,
or that. And so you're putting out a lot of high effort. So you got to be careful of maintaining your rest while you're doing, it's a cross season can wear you out. It can wear your bike out. It can wear your body out, and you definitely need a rest come the end of December. No doubt about it.
right. So yeah, bikes would, if you if cross season went longer, bikes wouldn't last.
No.
Your body wouldn't last. It's tough on your body. It's tough on your bike. Um, I'm not pretending to be any kind of cyclocross pro. I've raced a handful of races, but I've watched and I've been the mechanic for lots of riders. Not pitted for a lot of people. Paul was actually my first real, yeah. The first handoff, which I almost got fired on my first handoff. Let's just say that. Um, but I redeemed myself.
To practice, something
Yeah,
to
we're gonna, Paul. This year is gonna be the year. Me and you are gonna look straight pro.
okay. All right.
We are gonna look pro. I might even have a pit. Do they have pit uniforms? And if they don't, they should.
They should. We should make one. If not,
I should. Yeah. If they don't have a uniform for the pit guy, they do in NASCAR. All the NASCAR guys look legit. I'm basically a bicycle pit crew type guy for you. NASCAR version, bicycle.
that's true. That's true.
So we need to come up with our own pit uniform for me and you at least.
All right.
We're gonna look so pro. The handoff is gonna be so crisp. Like people aren't even gonna know that I did it. It's gonna
Like,
be a magic
like
trick.
handoff is though. Not everybody would understand that, right? So that's like, what do you mean handoff? Well, the reason you need 2 bikes is because there are races where you will go around half the course, if not one lap. And there's so much mud and grit attached to your bike, it needs to be cleaned. And that's where the pit comes in. You have this other bike in the pit. And if your friends are nice enough to you, you have somebody working the pit for you. Donald has worked the pit for me, which means he's gonna he's gonna be on the right side of the bike, not the right or left, but the correct side of the bike, holding the bike in the right gear with the pedals 180 degrees. They're straight across, parallel to the ground. He'll be holding my saddle with one hand and has the other hand out, ready to catch the bike that I'm coming in. Wait a second, Paul, you throw your bike at him? Actually, no. What happens is I jump off the bike while it's still moving. As it runs into Donald's hand, I jump back on the bike that he had was holding for me, and I'm away pedaling with very
Gone,
little time in between.
gone. Like a magic trick. Like you won't even know it happened if you turn your head for a second. All of a sudden, he's just on a clean bike and he's gone.
If you do it well,
If we do it right, which we will,
yeah.
we will. We'll do it. We're going to do it right this year. So that's it's a whole the what you have to do to prepare. It's a team event. When it gets muddy, cyclocross, you need a team. You
Yeah.
need a small team, at least one other person to do it well. Um, it's completely different than mountain biking. It's completely different than road riding. There's pits for road, but they're not this. It's not the same. Normally, road pits are what they call like a neutral pit, where you may have Shimano or Mavic or some other company work in the pit, and they'll swap out your tires for you real quick, and you can set out a free lap and you can keep going. Um, there are no free laps in cross. You set out a lap, you're a lap behind. Um, there mountain bikes, they won't run a mountain bike race if it gets too muddy. If it gets too nasty, they're not running the race. Um,
In
it's actually frowned.
cross,
It's
the promoter would be smiling ear to ear if it were
yeah,
too.
yeah. It's frowned upon to ride in a mountain bike race in the mud. It's not cool. But I don't know how you guys even fix the grass. I mean, literally, I've seen cyclocross races go out in the mud, and there's a trail that they've left in the middle of this field. I come back the next week, it's beautiful.
We reseed it. Yeah, we reseed it 100%.
Yeah, so they race in all conditions. Um, it doesn't matter. So, all right. So now we've covered bikes. We've covered what you do as far as you're preparing for it on the bike, off the bike. So off the bike, are you also do CrossFit? Are you intensifying more with your CrossFit, or you bringing it down?
So this is my focused race season. So I'm in the gym only once a week as opposed to in January, February, I'm in there 3 days a week. In March, April, May, June, part of July, I'm 2 days a week. August to the end till December, I'm 1 day a week, Mondays, just maintaining so I don't have to go through DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. It just keeps away that soreness so I can still do a little bit of lifting. If I have a double race weekend, I might even not work out that week. So if I have a Saturday Sunday race and I have another Saturday Sunday race coming up, it may be where I don't do a gym workout that week. So I'm really careful about the amount of lifting I do because it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Okay. Okay. So you come out of cross season. You come out of road season and you go straight into cross season. You come out of cross season and you go right into road.
Well, for me, I typically take a week off the bike completely. Like, no, like I don't ride at all. I literally put the cross bikes away. Hopefully, I cleaned them up. Hopefully, it was good nationals, and then I don't ride for a week. And then for me, that's typically December 16th to about the 24th. And then Christmas week is a good opportunity where I start my long, slow distance. Just long, slow rides, rebuilding because you've broken your body down really for me for the entire year, but certainly for cross. Like you should be really worn out. I'm pretty worn out by the end of cross season. I'm really tired. I feel tired. I feel like I can't do another intensive workout. Like that's the mentality you're in. And then you reset and you build that base again. And depending on what you're going to target and when you want to be around for your peak form, you start building in January. Maybe it's a slow build if I don't want peak form until December. Maybe it's a fast build if I want peak form um, in June. For this year, I'll probably my A race will actually be mountain bike nationals, so I'll probably do a little bit different training in March and April than I had in the past because I'll start to target um,
Right.
fitness that's ready for the beginning of July.
So so we know how you do your interval training ahead of time. You start more interval trainings because that's basically what cross is. It's similar to mountain biking where it's high intense intervals over and over, repeat, repeat, repeat. Um, nutrition wise, what's different? What do you take? Do you take anything different as far as while you're riding your cross bike during cross season versus road season or mountain bike season? Are you switching things up? Are you using a different blend?
No, ironically, I'm actually cutting calories because my volume is down in cross season. Like I'm not like, in road season. I'm probably doing 2, 3.5 hour rides a week, right? Of long rides.
Right.
So road season, I might be riding my hard, my hard, my hard week would be around 16 hours, right? My easy week would be around 8 to 10 hours. In cross, you can't do 12 to 19 races depending on what you're targeting and maintain that volume. So Well, if you're reducing your volume, guess what? You're not doing as much. You're not burning as many calories. So you can't continue to eat what you're eating during road season because you're riding less. I'm actually riding less, but at a much higher intensity in cross than I am in road.
Right. Or crit. When we say road, we're talking not just road racings, we're talking crits also. Road racing, even less intervals, more sustained power for road. Um, Crit racing, more intervals, but still not nearly as many intervals as you would get in a typical cross race.
Yeah.
Um, on a course that's normally a lot about half the distance of a crit course. Well, actually, that's not true. Sometimes they're just as long, but in the footprint of a cyclocross course may be just as long, but in a quarter of the space.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting, if I look at for the those of us who are number nerds, right? If I look at my data for a crit race, my normalized power might be, I don't know, like 325 to 350, somewhere in there, normalized power. But my average power is probably, maybe 220 to 240, right? So when I'm pedaling, it's high in crit. In my cross race, my normalized power might actually be, again, 330 to 350, depending on, the intensity of the race. But my average power is about 270 to 280. So I'm doing a lot more pedaling at that higher intensity, but not over the top intensity. That's
Because you're coming out of a corner, every time you're coming out of a corner, you're standing on those pedals. A lot like crits, a crit race that may be a four corner, but see, you got to remember, crit racing is maybe 4 or 5 corners, right? Cyclocross racing is 20 corners.
yeah, yeah,
So the same type of explosive intensity that you need to come out of a corner in a crit race, you need that coming out of a corner 20 times in a cross race.
yeah. It's not uncommon for me to put 700 watts out 20 times a lap, easily 20
Yeah,
times a lap.
that's insane.
Yeah,
And when you really think about it, I always admire and I always take my hat off to the guys that are really like into cross, because it's a hard sport. I equate it to the guy that's in the cross would probably do well, um, doing triathlons and things like that. I mean that multiple sport, because realistically, a cross race is a more is it's definitely a multiple discipline sport. You can't just be good at riding your bike. You got to be strong enough to hop over those barriers. If you need to run up a hill, you have to be able to run up a hill. You can't have bad knees and bad ankles. It's not going to work. So you got to be strong enough to do a little bit of everything. Um, so
that
you
being
got,
said, I don't want to scare everybody either. I feel like we're scaring people.
No, no, no. It's a challenge.
Yeah,
It's legit a challenge. I
it's
mean, there's
fun.
there's gonna be
Cross can be really fun. Like it's a really fun. Like it's the
100%.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, you're right. I'm not trying to scare anybody off, but it's not for the people, it's not for the people that are afraid of it either. It's just like mountain biking. I'm not trying to scare people away from mountain biking, but if you're the kind of person that doesn't like a challenge and doesn't like that adrenaline, then it's not for you.
Right. Yeah.
you
True.
know so it's more, I'm not scaring people off, I'm challenging people, I'm telling people that there's a sport out there that's tough. I don't do it as much as I probably should, and it's just one of those things. It's tough. It's not for everybody. The people that are scared off, I probably save them from getting hurt, right? If our conversation and me explaining what cross is scares you off, then you probably shouldn't do cross. You probably should race road or something else, right? I don't know. I mean, don't race at all. Just ride your bike, have a good time. Um, it's not. It doesn't have to be. The cool thing about cross is, like you said, Paul. You don't have to be a racer to do it.
Yeah. No,
You
you
might.
don't. And I want to be clear. Very rarely do I ever have a clean, what I would call a clean race, and let me define that. Like where I don't actually fall, make a mistake, take out some tape. It's like that happens. Like that's what's the fun thing about it. So
It's more of a time. So you don't really get the guy asked, what's the normal distance? It's not a, it's again, because they start to measure how fast the guys are going and they start giving you a count. So it's more of a time. And if some courses are super slow,
Well, let me give you an example. One time in Baltimore, which is a great race, by the way, if anybody wants to do Charm City, it's a fantastic venue to watch a cross race. It's a fantastic venue to race. It's just phenomenal. But there was one weekend where we were doing Charm City, and the first day we did 8 laps. The second day we did 6 laps. Pretty much the same distance of the course, but the course, because it had rained and been muddy the second day, was so much slower that it the same time, but it was 2 lap difference in the amount of
yeah.
lap.
So the distance depends on how fast the course is, how fast, obstacles, run ups, things like that. It just depends on how fast the course is. I don't even know how to even determine what a fast mile an hour. It depends on the class that you're racing. Um, you're going to go, obviously, the pros and the elites are going to go a lot faster than the Cat 5s, and they're going to cover a lot more distance. Um, I've seen averages of almost 16 miles an hour,
That's a
and
fast.
which is absolutely mind blowing.
That's a fast cross race.
Because you take your road bike on the road. If you're not really fit, you take your road bike on the road and you just set it at 16 miles an hour and see. I don't care if you're fit or not to go 16 miles an hour unless you're on a perfectly flat. You got to put some effort in. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, but I really want to reiterate, like, the friendliness of the cross venue for those who have not raced or are nervous about racing, or even getting hurt. Like, most of the cross falls are slow and they're on mud, and it's kind of
yeah, yeah, for
you're not
sure, for
it's not
sure.
a
I
lot of
don't Yeah, I don't see nearly as many bad crashes in cross as I even do in mountain bike racing. Definitely not as bad crashes as I see on road racing. Um, so I think out of the three disciplines, having road racing, mountain bike racing, and cross racing, I would much rather crash in cross than any of the other ones. Like I said, like Paul said, normally when you crash in cross, it's slipping out on some off camber stuff, and you kind of pick your bike back up. I rarely see anybody. I can't remember a time where I saw someone crash and cross and not at least try to get back up on their bike. Their bike may not say, "Hey, I'm ready to ride," but the person's normally jumping up real quick just and trying to get back on their bike. So, um, yeah, I'd say it's a hard discipline, but it's out of the three. If we're talking crashes, I probably would say it's the safest.
one of the things that taking your bike to the park with a new set of tires on, it'll get rid of that fear, because let's be honest, you're taking your road bike onto a mountain bike trail essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I I followed Paul through our local mountain bike trail on one of his cyclocross bikes. The same trail that I have super fun ripping it on my mountain bike. Have no like I honestly feel safer riding my mountain bike in these trails than walking or running these trails. Um, but when I got on the cross bike, it's a whole nother challenge. It scared the crap out of me to the point where that's not probably that's the last time I'll ride a cross bike in our local mountain bike trails. Um, I'm good with it. If Paul wants to go out and ride his cross bike in the mountain bike trails, he can do it. But I'll be on my mountain bike with him. I'm not going to be on a cross bike with him. That was his pay. That was pay.
This is a quote. I've never been more scared on a bike. I think that's what you said.
Yeah, there was a couple times where I honestly thought that I'm going over the handlebars, and there's not much. I mean, like, do I bail on his bike and just throw his bike down and just literally let it slide down the hill, or do I hold on to it? Yeah, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
but it's still fun. It's still fun. The um, the other thing we didn't talk about is tire pressure, which is like one of the really, really important things. Because it goes back to those three things, like your traction, being able to maintain traction in a cross race is key. So I think people are astounded when they first hear this, but you're using 33 mil tires, right? So they're not much bigger than a road tire, but when I'm running my tubular setups, and Mike Berner would say, unless you have 6 sets of wheels, you're not really a cross racer yet. And I think I have 4, so I'm still not really a cross racer yet, but I'm working on it.
That's
But if
a lot of wheels.
it's a lot of wheels, but different treads, because his wheels are glued. So my mind.
Well, that's another reason. That's another reason that he needs to have more wheels. Is because he just can't simply change a tire at will. So Mike Berner's my business partner. He runs tubular tires. A tubular tire is a tire that is glued to the rim, and it can't just be changed right away. They guys, it's one of those things that guys that have been racing, you can tell a guy's been racing for a long time, or has someone that's been racing for a long time mentoring him, because he's going to ride tubulars. There's really not a lot of reasons to do it other than that, and I hopefully I'm not offending anybody. But comment on this. Tell me if you think a tubular is the way to go. I love a little debate because I think I don't even glue tubulars anymore. It's too
Well,
much.
tubular, I can run probably 19 to 21 at 170 pounds, right? That's
Right.
that's low pressure. On my tubeless ones, I probably run 22 in the front and 25 in the back. So a little higher pressure
With the same outcome.
with the same. Well, I'm obviously going to have more traction on the tubular because I'm running a lower pressure. But once you get those
But are you though?
tubeless, I feel like I am. Once
Okay.
you get down to the tubeless, it can get really squirmy. It can get really
Oh
squirmy.
no, I get it. I get it. So my point is the reason that you need to have, how many sets of wheels did he say? 6?
6, yeah, 6.
You need to have, when you're running tubulars, you need to have 6 sets of wheels because you can't just change your tire whenever you want.
Yeah.
You got to have a set of tire. You have to have a set of wheels set up for any occasion. So it's to change a tubular tire properly. Mike just texted me saying he's feeling judged. He didn't even do it through the chat.
Yes,
He literally said it. He's feeling. I'm sorry. I love you, Mike. You're the man. But yeah, I just feel like,
is,
man, you got to have.
is Mike
It's
Burns
a,
saying he said that I need 6 sets of wheels? Is he denying it? Is that where we're at?
I don't know. I don't know if he is or not. But like I said, I still want to know. I want people to tell me. I'd love to have a debate. I mean, I've been having this debate lately on just tubeless in general. Um, Especially when it comes to road wheels versus inner tubes in road wheels. Um, what's better? What do you guys think? What do you think? What do you think's better? What is everybody running? I know you get into certain areas and people are going to run certain styles of tires because, again, it depends on who's the big guy in that area. If he's running tubeless, everybody's going to run tubeless. Everybody follows what the big dog does, right? Or the guy that everybody looks up to. If you're the local fast guy, you can influence a lot of people to do a lot of things. So I'm curious on what everybody's running. Comment on this because we'll read the comments, and I'm gonna come back at you if I think it's silly.
Yeah, we'll definitely respond. That's cool. Anything else? We got a couple minutes, Don. Anything else you want to add?
No, man. I think that's it. I think cross season is coming. A lot of people are already anticipating it. Again, it's one of those things. I'm definitely going to do at least. I'm gonna try to do at least 3 races this year. Um, I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll see. But yeah, uh, that's it, man. Get ready for it. It's coming. I think it's going to be a good season.
I think too, if you're watching this later and you do have a question, put it in the chat and we'll address that question so
That's,
that we
that's right. And if you're watching this now and you're not, come on, I know you're going to say, are they really going to say subscribe? Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Like this if you think we're doing a good job. Like I said, I want to make sure that this stuff lasts, man. We're having fun with it. It's truly. I before the camera started, me and Paul were talking, and I'm truly having a good time with this. It's a lot of fun. I could be doing other things with my time. I mean, it's my wife probably is a little tired of bike talk 24/7, but I honestly could do this 24/7 if I could. So yeah, that's about it, man. Like the channel if you don't mind. Subscribe.
Hit the subscribe. Are you gonna put a subscribe button when you do the edit?
Yeah, whenever I hopefully, but you know what the funny part is they never they're like subscribe right here and it's always on this side. It's never right. So either way, yeah, we'll play around with some stuff.
Subscribe.
Somewhere around here it's subscribe somewhere around there. All right, man, Paul. I
Peace
miss you,
out,
brother.
man.
I
Miss you.
miss we got to get you back to Baltimore.
Couple
Uh,
weeks. Couple
yeah,
weeks. I'll be back. Be ready. Be
yeah.
ready.
The scene up here is missing Paul Lavelli.
I'm working on my cross fitness, so my fitness hopefully will be up pretty high around mid-August.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Have a great night. I'll see you in 2 weeks. And yeah, later.